1 week season.
What's up, 1 week season fam? Xandermere here with another best ball video. We're just starting this draft. We have pick 11, and we're starting to see this draft move. We saw Ellie Taylor Cruz go at pick number 2, which is a bold choice, to say the least. Picking him not just over other stud outfielders like Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, but also over the consensus 1.1 infielder, Bobby Witt Jr. But, okay. We'll see how that goes for him. I admire people who take stands, even though early on, especially in the early rounds of the draft, I am not a stand taker. I am a portfolio diversifier. But, that's my approach. It's not necessarily the only right one. So these videos where I'm drafting on the ends are a lot harder because I have to come up with a lot more stuff to say that's in the middle. Corbin Carroll, he returned to play, I believe, which I now can't see. Oh well. So we're probably getting someone like, Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Alvarez, Tatis, Schwarber. Those are the guys likely to be there. Jose Ramirez, probably not. Gunnar. Gunner's been falling a lot, and I don't have a lot of Gunner because I haven't ranked a little higher than most, just because I rank infield a little higher. So I don't have a lot of Gunner. So I was enjoying getting some cheap Gunnar Henderson shares when he had the injury thing, and his ADP dropped for a little bit, but it looks like it's not a major injury, and so the ADP is climbing back up, although you can still get him around the turn in some drafts. So the late round presents a bit of a dilemma, late round 1, because the elite tier of infielders tend to be gone. There goes Tatis. He's the last really elite one. And so I'm left with, do I want Kyle Schwarber? Do I want, I can get one of these guys coming back the other way. Do I want Jose Ramirez? And I think what I'm going to do, what I usually do, I don't like going to infield early, but I know I'm going to get one of these outfields coming back. I might get Schwarber, but probably I'll definitely get one of these guys. And Jose Ramirez is, elite tier infielder. I'm fine starting infield. I want to invest heavily in outfield early, but that doesn't mean that I have to get an outfielder in the first round or the first round and the second round. I generally don't want to go, too much early infield. I have a couple of teams I've drafted where I go infield. I don't think I have any where I've gone 3 infield to start, because it just gets really hard to fill out your outfield when you don't have at least one of the higher tier guys. There goes Schwarber. So I'm looking at Julio, Duran, Churio. You can see I have Julio ranked higher. I think Julio is a great pick this year. He was pick 3, pick 4 last year. I mean, he's still not like a late pick, obviously, but he had one slightly down season and his ADP just tanked into the second round. I think he's fairly close to the same guy. He's still really young. I think he's not that far off from the guy who was ADP 4 or so last year. So I'm happy to get him. I have a lot of shares of Julio. Let's see. This is other than the Ellie De La Cruz pick. This draft is going pretty normally. We'll see what the guy who picked Ellie gets. I'm curious if he does just a weird overall draft, or if it was just Ellie that's his guy and then he drafts normally. Anyway, so let's look at what we can probably think of coming back. So next pick is 35 and 38. So if we go down, sort by ADP, who's likely to be there? We're looking at, sort of the late tier elite outfielders like Santander, Wood, or Happ. And then you see we get to the sort of mid-tier outfielders, the next pass of picks that I'll get. So it's be tough to leave this next 2-pick cycle of my 3rd and 4th round picks without getting one of these outfielders. And I mean, we'll see. Maybe they go early, but I really hope one of these guys gets to me, because it's tough to only have one stud outfielder start building your draft. And then otherwise, I'm looking at, Riley's probably gone, Alonso's probably gone. Probably looking at, Trey Turner, Kettle Marte, that sort of tier of player. The late round is, I think, a little tougher this year. I mean, it varies from year to year depending on what the separation is between the early tier and the late tier of the first round. And I feel like the early tier with one really clear elite infielder in Witt. Guys like Jose Ramirez, he's great, but you have to start wondering when is the age curve going to start hitting him. You've got like elite outfielders in Ohtani, Judge, Soto, who are just like clearly all studs if they stay healthy. And then the next tier down is like Kyle Tucker, Fernando Tatis, another kind of health-based guy, Jordan Alvarez, another health-based guy, who could be absolute studs if they stay healthy. Kyle Tucker, same. Kyle Tucker was on track for a ridiculous season last year based on his start, and he fouled the ball off his shin, which was reported as a contusion, a deep bruise. But then it turns out he fractured something in there and was out for a large chunk of the season. But he was on track for an absolutely ridiculous season. So the later first round picks, I think, have a few more warts in them than the early first round picks this year. So it's tough. I think this is a tough year, I think, for late first round. I think in other years it's not quite as tough. Last year, I think, was a little better outside of pick 1.1 being Acuna, who was clearly head and shoulders above the rest of the field, but then he got hurt early in the season. So, yeah. But from a pre-draft perspective, I think last year's first round looked a little flatter than this year's first round. Okay, 6 picks away. Nothing really surprising happening so far, really. Like all the guys you'd expect. Merrill went a little late. Nothing really out of the ordinary overall. Remember, it's this group of outfielders. It'd be Teoscar and Santander, probably not. They're probably not making it to me. Devers probably not making. Riley probably not making it to me. Wood, Hap, maybe. You'll see, by the way, I bumped Devers. You see, I had Devers ranked 54th. I have Devers ranked way high. I am getting more and more concerned with that shoulder injury of his that can really sap power. He was supposed to start spring training healthy, then he got delayed, again. And it's like, I'm just getting a little nervous about the Rafael Devers injury situation. I mentioned in the last video, what I primarily look for in spring training is not so much performance. I look for health. And when there's health concerns that are beyond what was expected, a guy's start to spring training is delayed. He's supposed to be delayed, then delayed more. Like, that stuff makes me nervous. So Devers is a guy who is really starting to worry me. I moved him back to the tier of guys like Yelich and Trout, where it's like, if they're healthy, they're awesome picks. They're awesome values at those ranks. But it feels like there is a very strong chance of a non-full season from them. Oh, there went James Wood. I was hoping for him. But Teoscar, Santander, there's enough guys that are ranked highly here that I can get. In my outfield, I'm going to get one of them. There's Trout. Oh, there's Trout. You big Trout. So I have Harris ranked more highly. But I'm not going to take Albies in the next turnaround. So instead of if I wanted to do Atlanta, I could do Harris, Albies. But I don't want to reach for Albies that highly. And so I don't have a lot of Santander, even though I have him ranked a little lower than the other elite tier outfielders. So I'm going to draft Santander here, even though, I had him ranked a little lower. But this is a spot where, again, just because I have a guy ranked a little lower, early in the draft, the drafts tend to adhere more to ADP. And so if you don't draft these guys, you're not going to get them at all, right? Like, if you're not willing to draft them at all, you're just not going to get them. This is a spot where I just have a lot more Kettle Marte than I have Trey Turner. So I'm going to go Turner. Kettle Marte and Trey Turner are very similar players to me. But I'm going to go Turner just because I know I have more Marte lately. Anyway, so, Santander I have ranked a little later, but early in the drafts tend to follow ADP so much that if you're not willing to occasionally draft ahead of rankings, you're going to end up with 0 of a guy. And I generally don't like to have 0 of players who are drafted in the first several rounds because those guys have the kind of ceilings that can bury you if you miss on them and you have none and they have a good season. They have a really good season, rather. So let's see what we're looking at. We have Cleveland, Philly, Seattle, Toronto. 3 of those teams are really tough to stack, right? So let's go look at Cleveland. Quan, Thomas. Who else you want? Probably no one. Phillies. Phillies are easy to stack. Even if you start late, Castellanos, Bohm, Stott, it goes a few guys late. Seattle, it's Arozarena, and then Cal Raleigh. That's it, kind of. JB Crawford, I think, is totally reasonable. And if you have a couple of other Seattle guys, and then Blue Jays, it's like Vlad and Santander, and then I'm kind of low on Springer. I'm low on Bichette. Andres Jimenez is fine, I think. But like, there's just these teams are hard to stack. So what I know already in this draft is that these early picks are mostly going to fly solo. I might get a second Seattle guy. I might get a second Cleveland guy. We'll see. But I'm not going to be building like 4 or 5 man stacks of any of those teams. Phillies, I'm not going to be building 4 or 5 man stacks because you can only really do that if you get like Schwarber Turner together. It's pretty hard to get Schwarber Harper. You'd have to like get a weird draft or really overdraft. But you can get Schwarber Turner fairly reasonably. Like I could have taken Schwarber instead of Jose Ramirez, and I would have had Schwarber Turner. So Philly, I can make a decent stack. I can get like Castellanos. I could get, we'll see if he's there on my next pick. He probably will be. I could get then Bohm and or Stott and or Marsh. So I can stack around Philly. But what I know is I'm going to need another team that I'm going to invest in this draft. And I'm not going to spoiler what I'm going to try and go for here because I think it's sort of a bit of a sneaky stack that involves some undrafted players and changes your overall roster construction a little bit, which in a way that I think is kind of interesting. So I am going to see if I can pull off something that I think that I want to try building a few stacks around to see if I can make them work. Okay, coming back, I was pick 59. So Adolis is probably gone. Suzuki's probably gone. Arozarena is probably gone. Arozarena is my pick if he's there because I want a Seattle player to go with Julio. That'd be nice. What I want is one of these outfielders would be good. Let's see what comes back to me. Actually, my pick is going to be, if he's there, my pick is going to be Logan Gilbert if he makes it back to me. I don't know if he will. Right? I'm pick 59. His ADP is 55. Good chance he doesn't make it back to me. But if he does, there he goes. Oh well, what a bummer. Maybe I'll get Cole Reagans. I don't have a lot of Cole Reagans. I'm thinking about pitcher early in this draft, and the reason why there is Arozarena. I was sort of hoping for him. The reason why I'm thinking pitcher early is because I'm planning sort of this sneaky late round stack strategy, which means I'm not going to be drafting pitchers in my last couple of rounds. I'm going to be getting some hitters that I think, in a vacuum aren't necessarily the best hitters in the world, but if the stack works, they can be, I could play really well. And it's a lot of infielders, so I don't need to draft as much infield. So I'm probably going to kind of just sit out on infield for a while. And that means, oh, damn it, there went, but I really wanted Reagans. Okay, let's see. Castellanos, it shall be. Get someone to pair with Turner. I'll get someone to pair with Turner, and then he got Burns. That's interesting. Okay, I'll get Sale if he's there, and if he's not, I'll get Yelich. Sale's there. Where should I go? Yelich. Oh man, I don't even know. Where am I drafting next? Like 80s. The 80s are tough. There's some good pitchers, but like the pitchers I really want are these two guys who are like 81, and they're probably going right there. So I'm gonna get Sale. If my next pick was like 79, 80, where I could feel really good about getting one of Pablo Lopez or Michael King, I would probably have drafted Yelich there and gotten Lopez or King as my SP1. But because my next pick is like 85, 83, and their ADPs are both in the 81 range, I can't feel super good about getting them. Like maybe I do, maybe I don't. But since I don't feel super good about getting them, I want to go ahead and lock in Sale to make sure I have an ace level SP1. And again, I'm drafting pitching early in this draft intentionally because it fits the strategy I'm going for late. So looking at my next picks, I've got 83, 86. If Kwan is there, I'd love him. I want more outfield. He fits with Jose Ramirez. If Kwan isn't there, I am totally happy overpaying a little bit for Lane Thomas because I think Lane Thomas is in for just a great spot. Really big season for him. He was still very good last year, even though he didn't quite, reach the heights he did in 2023. But he was hurt part of the year. He had fewer plate appearances. I think that Cleveland is a better offense than the Nationals were last year. I think they scored something like 60 more runs or something along those lines. So if that holds true again, right, we should see increased run scoring environment for Lane Thomas. So I really like Lane, and he stacks with Ramirez. So he would be a great pick. I will happily take Lopez or King if they're there. And if none of those three guys are there, if I can't get Lopez, King, or Kwan, and I'm 13 picks out. If I can't get Lopez, King, or Kwan, then my next two picks are going to be Lane Thomas and then undecided at this point. We'll see. I think my strategy might have. I'm going to try and hone this strategy a little bit because I want to do a few drafts that are like this that'll fit around the strategy I'm going for, which you'll see shortly. I think I might have messed it up. I think I might have gone. I think I probably shouldn't have gone Turner. I think I probably should have gone another outfielder, just based on how this is falling and what I want to draft when. Let's see, 5 picks away. All my guys are still there. Possibly presenting me with some real choices. Oh, there goes Kwan. I figured he wouldn't make it back to me. I'm going to have a conundrum on this pick, I think. I mean, depending on what the next 3 picks are, maybe they'll clear it up for me. But I want Lane Thomas. I want one of those 2 elite pitchers. There's King. I only have 2 picks available. And if Pablo isn't picked here, then I have 2 picks available and 3 players I really want. There goes Pablo. Well, that makes it easy for me. Let's get Lane Thomas. Actually, no. We're going to draft the guy I really want. We're going to draft Matt McLain. And then we'll draft Lane Thomas, I hope. I picked McLain because this guy only has 1 infielder and 4 outfielders. So I thought it is, I'm over ADP on both these guys, which I'm totally fine with. But I thought it was more likely that this guy would take McLain, given he has no infielders, than he would take Thomas. Although apparently all he wants is pitchers and doesn't care about infielders. So good luck to him. So if you look at this roster, Matt McLain was sort of the linchpin here because Matt McLain is an absolutely elite player when healthy, or he was at least. He was 2 years ago, right? He missed almost all of last season, unfortunately. Actually, I guess he did miss all of last season, didn't he? Did he play at all? Yeah, he did not. So in 2023, Matt McLain burst in the season, 403 plate appearances, an 864 OPS, 16 home runs, 14 stolen bases, hit 290. If you're watching these videos, you know my infatuation with the Reds. I bumped him up in the rankings recently because what I was looking for Matt McLain in spring training this year, as I talked about, what I look for is health, and he looks healthy. So, he's playing, he's doing things you want him to do. Let's see, spring training stats. Let's see. How's he doing in spring training? Oh, look, just a nice, cool 1,000 OPS. So, and he's playing, right? He's already got 20 at bats racked up. That's what we want to see. We want to see that he's healthy from that shoulder thing that took his entire last season away. And the reason he's the linchpin is because what I want to do is I want to build a red stack. Because I think the Reds, and I know I feel like infatuated with the Reds, but I think they're a super interesting team because they have guys. There aren't that many teams that have multiple guys that aren't even being drafted. And the Reds are projected to score, I believe it's the 10th most runs in MLB. It's an elite hitters park. It's just a great spot for Cincinnati this year when you compare projected runs scored and then draft costs to acquire them. Because outside of Elly De La Cruz, with Spencer Steer hurt, there's no one really going in the McLean's barely in the top 100. Everyone else is after that. So, are the Reds going to smash? I don't know. But I think when I look at teams and sort them by like the number of runs I think they're likely to score and then their draft cost to acquire the players that I want from that team, outside of Elly De La Cruz, they're so cheap. And Ellie's fine too, but like outside of, I'll get some of him too and do some red stacks with him. But like their team is just so cheap, and I love that because it means that I can do some unusual drafts. Like I talk about how waiting on pitching makes sense, and it still does, right? But if you know that you're going to get multiple players at the very end of the draft that fit your stack, and you can have a high degree of confidence you're going to get those players because they're not even being drafted, well, that opens up a lot more opportunity to draft some elite pitching earlier, hence sale. The reason I said I shouldn't have gotten Trey Turner is because I'm going to get between 2 and 3 more Reds infielders. And so most of my infielders are going to be filled with Reds. And so Turner's fine. He's a great player. But I didn't necessarily need him in that roster as much as I could have used another outfielder. I wouldn't have gotten a pitcher there at pick 38 unless Scooball fell up way past ADP. So I didn't really need a pitcher, but I could have, say, gotten an outfielder there. Like, let's go back really quick. Let's see, I have 6 picks to go. Okay. If we go back to pick, when I picked Trey Turner, I could have gotten Michael Harris. I could have gotten Brian Reynolds. I could have gotten Lawrence Butler. There were a couple of their outfielders that were very reasonable picks there that I could have gotten. And that would have left me basically either then I could have gotten Lane Thomas and been essentially done with outfield before pick 100, which is a nice spot to be in. Or I could have not taken Lane Thomas, even though I like him, and I could have gotten another high-tier pitcher. Now, again, this would have been a harder choice if King or Pablo was still there. They're the two I wanted the most. But like I could have gotten, say, McLean and Logan Webb. That would have been solid. Or, Freddie Peralta or Hunter Brown. Another option is, another option I could have just gotten Lane Thomas and been done with outfield until like the last round, right? 5 outfielders in the top 100. Basically, you're done with outfield. You probably still want 6, but you can get one very, very late and feel fine. So now I'm in a spot where everyone's drafting infielders and pitching, but I don't need infielders. I'm going to want one more non-Reds infielder, probably, maybe 2, but I can get them later. I know I can get a Philly late too, right? I can get Bryson Stott, I can get Alec Bohm. I do want, one more reasonable outfielder. But what I really want is pitching. So if I look at pitching, right? George Kirby, unfortunately, got hurt. Luis Castillo is a guy, I know where I have him ranked, but I just can't get into him. So I'm going to go Max Fried. Luis Castillo, like all of his advanced metrics tanked last year. Strikeout rate, swing strike rate, like everything plummeted a lot. So he's way back in the rankings, but he still makes me nervous even there. Max Fried, though, I'm content with, and then maybe Bailey Ober. Let's see. So I've got Bryce Miller, ranked a little more highly than Bailey Ober, but they're the same tier. And there's at least some chance that Miller makes it back to me, whereas there's no chance, I think, that Ober makes it back to me. So we're going to go Bailey Ober. So see, I'm starting to be able to load up on some pitching earlier because I don't have to worry about infield. This guy with one outfielder, his roster's already dead. I don't think Skane, Scooball, Wheeler. I am all for doing some contrarian drafting from time to time, but like that roster is just bad. Don't be at pick 10 with one outfielder, please, ever. The gap between the elite pitchers is so much less than the gap between the elite hitters. Sorry, the gap between elite and next year, elite pitchers and non-elite pitchers, the gap is much smaller than between elite hitters and non-elite hitters. So this guy's screwed. This guy's roster is dead. he auto drafting? Well, he just timed out on a pick. I don't even know. He might be auto drafting. I'm not paying attention. There goes, he got Kirby. So he's drafted 3 top tier pitchers and then 2 hurt pitchers. So if both those pitchers end up not being hurt and make it back for opening day, well, then he's in a good spot pitching wise, I suppose. Let's see. Sorry, I was looking at 11 picks. Okay, so I get pick 131, 134. I thought Bryce Miller wouldn't make it back to me. Excuse me, but there's still more good pitching I can get. I will happily take Matt Wallner if he's there and kind of finish my outfield. Otherwise, I'm going to get like Tanner Bibby, Kevin Gossman, Joe Ryan, Senga, Lugo, Flaherty's down here. I might bump Flaherty up a little bit. McClanahan's a highly risky pitcher because innings are the concern. But if he's healthy, he's awesome. If he makes it through the season, if he pitches, it's not just innings like will he get hurt. It's also like innings as in there are some teams you can feel more confident looking to innings for. It's harder with the Rays. The Red Sox, last year I really liked Cutter Crawford and drafted a ton of Cutter Crawford, but this year the Red Sox are apparently running a 6-man rotation. And so a 6-man rotation, assuming they keep it for the whole year, which they may or may not, but assuming they keep a 6-man rotation for the whole year, that kind of caps out your innings upside at like 160-ish instead of 200-ish. And that's a big deal. It means there's fewer 2-start weeks. That's a really big deal. Like you'll notice I'm not really, if you look at my rankings, I'm generally behind the market on like the entire Dodgers pitching staff because the Dodgers are planning to do a 6-man rotation. And the Dodgers also have like 8,000 healthy good pitchers, or at least good pitchers. The health is up and down. But like it's hard to count on thinking, it's hard to think you're going to get 180, 190, 200 innings from any Dodgers pitcher. Oh, cool. Wallner. It's hard to think you're going to get those kind of innings from any Dodgers pitcher. And so, I don't want to pay a high draft cost to get a guy who I think has a ceiling of 150, 160 innings like Yamamoto or Sasaki or Glasnow, even though they can be really, really good innings when I can find guys who have ceilings of 200 innings. And the Rays are kind of similar. The Red Sox are similar. So it's a little harder for me to draft those kind of pitchers. It depends on where they're drafted, obviously. Let's see. Let's go Gausman. So I will note I could have gone. I didn't have to take Wallner there. I could have planned to get Friedel as my sort of fifth, and I keep saying last infield, like finishing the outfield. I'll get a 6th one, but I generally think like your outfield 6, your infield 7. Those are guys who you're not expecting to get a lot of starts from. They're not likely to be your top 3 highest scoring guys at the position. So I don't think it makes sense to invest a lot of draft capital in the last spot at a position. So I'll get into the outfield later, but like I could have gotten Friedel. I think the thing with Friedel is I like him, but like he's been really fragile, and the Reds have a lot of depth at outfield. So as much as like the Reds, and I do, and I have some Red stacks with Friedel. I'm like already way overweight Friedel, as you could guess from where my ranking is. So I don't want to put him in like every Red stack I build. I want to intentionally avoid him in some. And I really like Matt Wallner. Like Matt Wallner, I think. Let me show you my Matt Wallner fascination. Let's go look here. Matt Wallner, when healthy, 2023, 877 OPS. 2024, 894 OPS. Now, 254, 261 plate appearances each season. That's the problem. He's gotten hurt. But if he stays healthy, is he really like an almost 900 OPS guy? Probably not. I mean, very few guys are. But like, he's real good. And if he stays healthy, he can be real good. If you look at, so one of the things I look at too is I come to Fangraphs and I'll look at the weighted on base average and I look at the expected weighted on base average to see like how lucky is he getting with balls in play. For example, like 2024, he hit 389 on balls in play. He's not especially fast. Fast guys are going to have a higher batting average on balls in play because they can run out grounders more easily, right? They're can beat throw at first. Wallner is not especially fast. He got lucky there to some extent. He's not going to hit this well, but a 358 expected weighted on base average is still comfortably above average, like well above average. And then I kind of like, I don't do this for every single player, but I kind of look like batted ball metrics. That's a good hard hit ball rate. It's a well above average hard hit ball rate. Good line drive rate, like good fly ball rate. He's hitting the ball in the air a lot. He's pulling it a lot. His power, which is where his power is too. He's hitting the ball hard. When you hit the ball in the air hard, good things usually happen. So I'm enamored of Matt Wallner. If he stays healthy for a full season, I think he's like a real breakout kind of star. And he's written up in my what's a Conviction Plays article if you want to read more on my Matt Wallner thoughts. Okay, let's see where we are in the draft. Let's see. So we have 5 picks to go. I have 4 pitchers. So I have 3 infielders, and I'm planning to get 2 to 3 Reds. I'm also planning to get, maybe I have 2 Phillies. Because I got Castellanos, that makes me want to get another Philly. Where's Bum? Picked? Oh, Bum got picked early. Who picked Alec Bohm this early? Wow, I hate you. Doesn't have any other Phillies. Oh, yes, Harper, I guess. Okay, I get it. Well, anyway, that's not a guy you usually see get picked early. Okay, so if I want another Philly, which I kind of do because I have 2 already, then Stott is the most logical. So I'm just gonna plot Bryson Stott on my watch list. I'm going to, but if Stott's also late, and there's really, I don't feel like I need to reach now, so I can continue with my just sucking up all the pitching. So if I just look at pitching, ADP, Mackenzie Gore, Nick Pivetta, Brian Wu. You can tell I really like Brian Wu. We're closing out his ADP. Ta-da. We got Brian Wu. This isn't quite as stealthy of a pitching staff as I could have had. That's a pretty good pitching staff, at least by the standards of what I normally draft. I'm normally much more willing to embrace a lot of variance at pitching and not invest a lot of draft picks in it, a lot of high draft picks. So if I'm getting Bryson Stott late, it's either one more pitcher, but I think it's Friedel. Here we're gonna get just my 6th outfielder and Reds. We are going to go Friedel. I know I talked about not wanting him to every Reds roster I make, and I don't. But the ADP made sense. The ranking made sense. There was another player I really liked that I really have ranked significantly over ADP that fits needs my roster. Right, I got Wu. He was the last guy I had that was really significantly over. Ranked significantly under where the draft is right now that also fit the needs of my roster, right? Because I could have got like the other guys that I had ranked under were like Evan Carter, who I don't need. So I don't have another Ranger. Max Muncy, I don't have a Dodger, and I've got plans for infield. Luis Garcia, I can always pick up at the end if I want. There's more pitchers I liked, but that was around where the draft pick was. Their ADPs are all later, and I have 5 pitchers already, so I thought just get Friedel. Get my red stack, which I'm happy with. So anyway, Bryson Stott is my leader. Guardians, there's really no one I'm adding here. Like, if you want to take shots on comments, Ardo, and if you have a Guardian stack, I don't blame you for that. I think that's fine. It's not really my cup of tea. Blue Jays, we noted. Andres Jimenez is fine. Not especially exciting. The late round flyer kind of guys, I normally prefer adding to a stack where I already have 2 or 3 guys from that team, or at least where I have like a really early round pick from that team. So like Santander's an early round pick, but he's not a first round or second round pick. And I only have 1 Blue Jay. So this isn't the kind of roster that I would generally stick an Andres Jimenez on, because the way Andres Jimenez has a big season, usually, means that the Blue Jays, you're going to see multiple Blue Jays exceed their expectations, right? That's like Vlad has a big season, and maybe even Bichette has a bigger than normal season. I don't know. and Santander has a big season. So if I had Vlad and Santander, that's where I'd be more inclined to draft, say, Jimenez. So see, Phillies, I still have Stott. I can't believe someone. It's weird to see Alec Boehm go way before. Let's see, Twins. I have Wallner. I could get Carlos Correa. That's fine if I need one more infielder. Totally fine with that. And then Reds, I want Encarnacion Strand. I want Heimer Candelario. Heimer, I think it's Heimer. Gavin Lux. Those are the three guys I want to put on my Reds sort of watch list. And what you'll notice is these guys are like undrafted. Christian Encarnacion Strand is starting to go up just a little. He's getting drafted in some drafts, but still not most. But so there you go. 5 infielders. I have 4 infield spots left to fill. So, ta-da. And really, they're all picks that are not completely risk-free. Like, it's not like completely out of the question that someone could draft these guys, but it's unlikely, right? They're guys who are not heavily drafted. So I'm probably going to grab one more pitcher here. And then I'm going to grab Encarnacion Strand because he's the only guy really who's being drafted of the Reds guys. And I want to build, I said I want to build a Red stack. Stott, it's like if I don't get him, no big deal, right? He's my third Philly. It's not the core stack I'm trying to go for on this team. I'd like to get him, but I'd rather have him than Correa as my last infielder. But it's not that big a deal to me. So Encarnacion Strand, I'm starting to see get drafted a little bit here and there. So I'd rather grab him and make sure that I get my Reds. Let's see, but I want a pitcher. So let's see, Gavin Williams, Brandon Woodruff. I have so much Brandon Woodruff, and I love him, but I don't want to get him. I don't want to pick him on every roster. So I'm going to get Gavin Williams, who's another one of my kind of breakout pitcher candidates. So you'll see me, I'm going to do a few drafts that are based on this. I'm not going to try to video all of them because it'd be boring doing videos that are the exact same draft strategy over and over and over. But I'm going to do a few drafts like this because I'm really interested in this overall structure and strategy. I think it's a really strong way to play this year with this invest. And again, it's all about just where you can get teams that are stackable, they're cheap, and they're cheap relative to their expected offensive output. So the Dodgers, the Braves, great teams to stack. Their teams are expected to score a ton of runs. You're paying up for those, and that's fine. And they should be expensive because their teams are elite offenses filled with elite players. But let's see, CS, when you start getting past the elite teams, I start looking for cost to acquire, but I also look for stability where I think I can predict at bats. So for example, the Rays generally cobble together a pretty decent offense most seasons, but they platoon so much that it's really hard for me to get into Rays hitters. They have some good hitters, right? They have Josh Lowe is a very good hitter. Junior Caminero may or may not be a good hitter. We're not sure. Yandy Diaz is a pretty good hitter, but otherwise they just platoon so much that it's really hard to get into Rays stacking for me because I don't like platoons. I want guys who I can project to play, every day. The Rockies are another late round stack that I think is interesting and cheap to acquire because they're not projected to score as many points as the Reds because they're bad on the road, but their points also tend to come in bunches when they have week-long homestands, and you can get some really big explosion games. The Cardinals are probably not going to score as many runs as the Reds. They're projected to score fewer, but their stack is really cheap to get because there's basically, who's being drafted here? Mason Wynn and Brendan Donovan, and Wilson Contreras, and they're all going really late. So again, this is not a high upside stack really, but you're getting them very late, and that's advantageous in and of itself. Right, it's good. It's advantageous to pay just a little bit of draft capital for them. So this is a stack I'm more interested in pairing with, say, if I get a 4 or 5 man Braves, a 5-man Brave stack is hard to do, but if I get a 4-man Brave stack, that's where I've invested a lot of early capital in one team's hitters. Then I can scoop up some mid-range pitchers and then fill out some late round Cardinal stack to be the second sort of main stack of the team. That's an appealing option to me. Sorry, I just got distracted because I just got Fernando Tatis at pick 14 in a slow draft, which is very exciting to me. Okay, so we're 12 picks away. So the other guy who's, I don't care about Carlos Correa, really. I mean, I'd rather have Stott. But he does, pair with somebody I have. Stott is the guy I'd rather have because I have 2 Phillies, right? Because I already have 2 Phillies and only have 1 twin. Is it 1 twins? I don't know. I only have 1 Minnesota player. I'd rather have Stott than Correa. These guys aren't getting drafted at all. I can get them with my last 2 picks every time, or almost every time. Hopefully, there's no other OWS drafter who saw me talking about Gavin Lux before who's in this draft. So what I may as well get this next round. I should get Stott to make sure I get him right, and then I should get my final pitcher, and then plan to get Candelario and Lux with the last round coming back, which gives me a 5-man red stack with only 1 player inside the top 100. But the Reds, per Fangraphs and most major projection systems, are projected to score around the 10th most runs this season, which is top 3rd in MLB. They're not the Dodgers, but that's a healthy run scoring environment. Their stadium is very, very hitter friendly. They play in a fairly weak division that doesn't have a lot of strong teams. Doesn't have a lot of strong pitching. I mean, go look at like the Cubs pitching staff, right? Go look at the Brewers pitching staff right now. With Burns gone, it's like Woodruff and some scrubs. They've got a great offensive environment to play in. So I don't know. Of all the cheap late round teams, like they're my favorite because I think they have more upside than the Cardinals, the Rockies overall. Okay, so I know I want pitcher and I know I want Stott. Let's see. Someone snagged Max Scherzer. We're going to get Baz or Evaldi. We're going to go Shane Baz. He was a late round pitcher who had what was his ERA last season? Around 3, I think. It's really good. And he should be healthy this year. He has the same caveats as all the Rays pitchers, right? Which is that he's not going to get 200 innings. But there's a difference between paying, a top 100 draft pick, like a pick 90, pick 100 around for a Yamamoto or a Glasnow or a what's his name, Sasaki, who's not going to get 200 innings, versus paying, your 17th round pick for Shane Baz, who's not going to get 200 innings, right? There's a difference in capital and cost to acquire. As long as Baz is healthy and pitching at the end of the season, I'm fine with that, right? I'm fine with him, with him as my SP7. It's very, very different when someone's like your SP2 versus being your SP7 in terms of what your expectations are for that player. So I hopefully will wrap this up with Candelario and Lux, which will give me a nice. So I have a 3-player Philly stack with Turner, Castellanos, and Stott. I have a couple of Clevelands. I have 2-player Cleveland correlation: Jose Ramirez, Lane Thomas, Julio, and Santander and Wallner are by themselves. And then I'll have a 5-player red stack. So once again, I come back to around 10 stacked players. I usually draft 13 hitters, right? 10 infielders, 7 infielders, 6 outfielders is my most common construction. And so I usually want 9 to 10 of those guys correlated. Now, whether that's 3-3-4, whether that's 5-3-2, like it's not as important, right? That just depends on how the draft falls. But I generally want to have like 9 or 10 of my hitters correlated with someone, because when a guy gets a hit and then gets an RBI, well, who did he drive in, right? Who scored? Well, if you have both those hitters, you get both the points. So Candelario and Lux will wrap it up. If you don't know why my fascination with Gavin Lux, I kind of talked about him in the last video, is Lux was the former, I think he got as high as the number 2 prospect in all of baseball before he debuted. He's 27 years old, which 27 is sort of like the magic age in the aging curve for baseball players, for hitters. It's when they tend to have their most productive seasons. It's sort of the magic point of they reach physical maturity. But it also, I think, has something to do with like learned the game, like by that point, they've usually been in the big leagues a couple of years. They sort of learned the game, learned how to, how to spot different kinds of pitches, right? How to anticipate what's coming, that kind of thing. But they haven't started reaching the sort of age-related decline phase as they get older. So he's at that magic age of 27 years old. He's a former, I love former top prospects who just didn't smash the second they got into MLB because baseball's hard. And it's very common for hitters, especially hitters, not to smash right away, to take some time to adjust to the big leagues. And so, you can often get those guys for a really cheap value, whether you're talking best ball or managed drafts or even dynasty. People sour on players who do not immediately find success in the big leagues, but a lot of players don't immediately find success in the big leagues. Sometimes it takes guys time. Lux had something like a, oh God, I looked up in the last video already. Gavin Lux. Let's check out his splits. He's going to be hitting, again, Reds. Red Stadium is a great, I'm on the clock. Let's get Lux. Red Stadium is a great stadium for hitting. Splits. So first half, second half hit 303, 181 played, 8 bats, 7 home runs. Let's actually go to advanced stats. It's a little better. So second half, 387 weighted on base average, 152 weighted runs created, 899 OPS. Now look, he 390 BABIP. This is all, and players who have ridiculous elite performances. Oh no, I didn't see my I blame myself. I got it timed out because I didn't even see I was up. I will say I hate that Underdog doesn't do notifications like this by default. So I auto drafted Correa, which is like okay, right? Because at least I have Wallner, so but I really wanted Candelario on this roster. This is the challenge of doing drafts while recording. Is I'm trying to talk to you guys while also trying to pay attention to the draft. So my fault for not bumping. I could have just dragged Candelario to the top of my queue and then called it a day and known I would have gotten Candelario if available and Correa if not. But so totally my fault. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, like any player who has a performance like this is gonna have a high batting average on balls in play because you don't hit as well as that without getting some amount of good fortune. But that's okay, right? Like end of the day, he was incredibly good. He doesn't have to be this good. He doesn't have to have an 899 OPS to deliver really good. He could have an 800 OPS. So that would be like a 290 BABIP with all the other stats remaining the same. And he would still be a great, great value and a great pick that late. He'd still return a ton of value. So I'm just obsessed with Gavin Lux as a late round pick because I love top prospects. Also, I don't know, maybe I like the story too of the top prospects who don't succeed initially, but then come around. So anyway, I'm going to be making a bunch of stacks kind of like this, and like the core idea. If you get Ellie, cool. If not, no big deal. But Matt McLean, I think, is a pretty core piece in those stacks. TJ Friedel, if you need an outfielder, and then at least 2. Doesn't have to be all of them, right? But like at least 2 of Encarnacion Strand, Lux, and Candelario. So it becomes my core like red stack structure, and it lets you get go into the later part of the draft with a high degree of confidence in putting together that stack because most of the players just go undrafted. And so you can get them really late. And so like, you don't have to worry about, saving picks for them or getting them early so they don't get taken. And that lets you get the side effect of that is you can invest those picks earlier in outfield and earlier in pitching and to get a better outfield and a better pitching staff than you otherwise would. So cool. Thanks for hanging out and see you next time.
1 week season.